Hello, welcome back. So in the previous section, we added the user model and also the schema. So in this section, we will go ahead and add a user resource. So let's get started. So let us understand how to add a register endpoint to the REST API. So registering a user sounds a difficult thing, but we can break it down in a simple way. Okay, so let's go to our resources and let's start with by creating a new file, and then we'll say user.py. Okay, so we've created this user.py, and let us understand how to add a register endpoint to the REST API. So this is pretty simple. So we can simply follow these steps. So basically in our first point, we will receive a username and password from the client, which will be basically as a JSON. And we will check if the user with that username already exists. If it doesn't, then in that case, we will encrypt the password which we received from the client, and then we will create a new user model to the database. And then we will return a success message. But if the user with the username already exists, then in that case, we will throw an exception that user already exists. Okay. So let's follow this and let's create a user boilerplate setup. So the boilerplate setup should be pretty same for every application. So let me just remove this, or let me go to the top and let me simply paste it. Okay. So here you can see that I've imported few modules. And also I've imported few modules from our Flask, few modules from our Flask small rest, and also from our passlib. And also we have this our database, our models, and our schemas, right? And then we have created a blueprint of users with the name user, and we added a description of operations on users. So now let's create a method view class and let's register a route using this blueprint. So it should be pretty simple. We'll say the red blueprint, and then this will be basically of route. Okay, so let's add an endpoint of register. Okay, so let's create a method view, which will basically be class user register. It will extend our method view, which we imported here. So let me edit here, method view. Okay, so basically when we create something, we'll get something from the client. When we say register, that basically means creating, right? So in that case, we should use post. So there should be a post method. So we can say post. Okay, and then it will be of self, and for now I'll say pass. So here, since we are getting post method and we are getting something from our client, so in that case we can add a arguments. So it will be basically blueprint at the red blueprint dot arguments. Okay, and here we can pass our basically user schema, right? So let's pass our user schema, and now since we have this user schema here, we can get the user information. I will say user data. So as I've added the steps here, so let us understand how we can use this. So here you can see we receive a username and password from the client. So now we have this username and password in this user data, and now we will check if the user with the name already exists. Okay, so let's do that. We'll say if user model dot query. So now if you want to find the user, so basically we can go and check if the username already exists, right? So we can say user model dot query dot filter, and we can check if this username already exists by saying user model dot. So if we check our user schema, we have our username. So let me copy this, and let's say user model dot username, it's equal to user data of username, and we'll find the first element. So basically this is a query, and in this case let me say pass. So let me help you understand what exactly we have done. Go and check our database if the username already exists with this particular username which you get from the client. And here what we're saying is we are saying username equal to username, and we're getting the first record. So if that exists, then here we can say abort. Okay, so we'll abort by using 409. So basically the status code 409 basically means that we have a conflicting request, right? Because username already exists. So in that case, we're trying this 409 status code, and let's try a message, and we can say a username already exists, or a provided username already exists. So in that case, we can throw an abort. So now let's try to create a user model. We can say user, it's equal to user model. So why are we doing this? Because in case of our shop, when we create, so here we were just adding, like we were adding all these resources here, but here what we are doing is in our user, in the case of user, we cannot store all the information directly to our database because we are getting a username and a password, and we cannot store our password in a plain format. Okay, so for that case we will hash our password. So encrypt our password and we'll add a new user model to the database. So basically we're creating a new user model, and you can say username. Let me just copy this. We'll say username is basically equal to user data dot username, right? So we'll edit here, and then our password will be equal to. So if you can see here, I've imported this pbdkf to SHA-256. So this is imported from our passlib hash algorithm. So you can see here, this will give us a basically a encoded hash. Okay, so let's go and create a password. So let us encrypt the password, and we have added this. And now what we need to do is we need to say hash. So we're creating hash of what? Of user data and of what? Let's go and see our user schema. It's a password. Okay, so this way we have created a user, and now we need to say db.session.add, and we'll add the user db.session.commit. Okay, so when we successfully added our user or created our user, we can say return, and let's return a message of, we'll say user created successfully, and then we will return status code of 201, which basically means created. Okay, and also let's create another endpoint. This is for creating the user, and also let's create a new endpoint which will be basically getting the user. Okay, like getting all the users. So let me just extend this, and I can say at the rate blueprint dot. So I don't think I need the argument. So let me go to our shop.py and let me use our get. So let me copy this and let me go to user. So here I can simply say, I've just copy and pasted it. So here I can say, so it should not be a shop schema. So now in this case, it should be user schema, and here we should be user model. And then we're getting all the user. So please note, this is just for a development purpose. Okay, so I've added this just to check our user, if the user is created successfully or not. And now we have created our user endpoint / register. We have registered our user. So it's time to go and register this blueprint, right? So let's go to our app.py, and it should be pretty simple. Let me just copy and paste this part, and then we can say resources.user, and then let's import it as a user blueprint. Let me copy this, let me copy this line, and let me copy this user blueprint. Okay, so far in this section, what we have done is we have created a user resource, and here we have created two endpoints, which is basically one is for registering the user or creating a user, and the other is for a development purpose to list all the users if they are successfully logged in or not, like if the user is created or not. And also we have registered our user in our app.py by using the same way. So we have registered this blueprint in our application, and now in the next section we will go and create our user using Postman. So see you there.